Hello all and welcome to episode 65 of the 3-for-1 Sky Fantasy podcast by Fantasy Football Hub, as Chelsea and Man City assets again smashed the game week, while those who brought in Harry Kane, including me, probably feel a little bit underwhelmed. I did notice, Paul, his ownership spiked from, I think it was 40% on Friday. He's up to about 66%, so plenty brought in yesterday.
666.
666, exactly.
Which tells the story.
It does tell a story, exactly that. My name is Fergi, and I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Paul McAnulty. Paul, how was your Sky weekend?
Yeah, I had a good Sky weekend. I made one transfer, took out Aspilicueta, finally lost patience with him and saw the team sheet. Although I did work out from that Livramento move, so I was going to move Aspilicueta onto Livramento for that captaincy, and I'd have got 18 points and then plus the 1. But I made the Gehi move at the weekend, so I'm actually only net 10 down from the move, and I prefer Gehi to Livramento moving forward anyway. So
you brought in Gehi for all his, his pattern attributes and clean sheets. And what to do on the weekend, Paul, on Saturday?
Shots, bonus, and a goal. So
and no bonus and no clean sheet.
Yeah, conceded 3 and no clean sheet. But I'm happy to hold him longer term now.
Of course. I did the same yesterday with Højbjerg. Brought him in for his passing bonus, tackle bonus, and of course he got the goal and no bonus. It's bizarre how these things kind of work out. So I was quite fortunate yesterday. I dropped a bit on Saturday, but captained Cancelo on Sunday, and obviously brought in Højbjerg as well, which is a nice little boost. So quite lucky with the Højbjerg goal, I suppose. He does have a little bit of attacking threat, but I do think he's a very good hold moving forward.
I didn't realise how lucky I was. Like I'm a non-Diaz owner, and I looked at his ownership as soon as the team sheet came out. Was it 45%? He was owned in the top 1,000. So I feel pretty lucky. I wouldn't have done it, but I was going for my hedge. Should I move Aubameyang onto Diaz and then just cover that off then and there? But I still fancy Aubameyang at home to Newcastle next week, so I probably would have held still anyway.
I missed out on Christensen and Diaz on the weekend, so I'm feeling very hard done by there. There's always a risk on Christensen, obviously, but on Diaz, there's normally zero risk is there. But I think Luke, to be fair, on the Scout Pod did mention that he sometimes get rested after the international break and before a couple of big games. So but he'll play 9 out of 10 moving forward only, and City are just looking immense at the moment, so happy to move going forward. For any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching on YouTube, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our podcasts and live streams. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be much appreciated. So today we have another jammed show. We'll firstly look at the highest owned players and how they performed on the weekend, and any changes in terms of the ownership, and also how the mid-price midfielders. So Paul has noticed that they are starting to mop the bonus points up once again. We have both formulated a rough plan to tackle December. So we're going to walk through the December fixtures, look at captaincy for each day and how that might impact our transfer decision going forward. I'm quite happy as well to share my quite detailed plan. I've got 2 teams that have been very similar up until this weekend, and my plan is for them to differentiate down the 2 paths, maybe of freemium or not. So I'm quite excited for that. We're going to have a discussion around transfer management, thanks to a tweet sent out from Dave at Simple Goal, which had some very interesting results and reaction. We will take on some Twitter questions that we haven't answered already before taking a look at my team update and plans and some mini league updates as well. So a jam-packed show as usual for you here. So firstly, we have the top 1K ownership. We've already, we've mentioned already Kane, and I was looking at who the casualties were, and it looks like Christensen has dropped out. So I was one of those. So Christensen was on this chart, and he's not anymore. But Kane up to 66.6% in the top 1K, failing to deliver. He did have one shot on target yesterday, but Spurs looked a bit better. What are your takes on the ownership, Paul?
Yeah, I think I own the 6 top owned players. I mean, I imagine Mendy. There's going to be quite a few teams with 8 or 9 of the top players in there as well. The top 3 of Gallagher, Cancelo, and Salah almost make, like, I think someone alluded to it in one of the questions they put forward, but almost makes it like an 8-player game. And I'm now just tempted, as long as I can see the Man City team sheets, I'm tempted to captain Cancelo in any days
Beast.
that Salah's not playing for Liverpool, which kind of takes more decisions out of my hand as well. And I think like those that had Tielemans or anybody else that was injured, as Piliqueta not starting, I think a lot had moved on to Gallagher as well. So yeah, it almost makes it an 8-player game, and how we use the budget for the rest of the team will come into consideration, I guess, in our conversations within this pod.
It will. Looking at Rafinha in 5th place, so I've got a plan to move Rafinha out in a couple of weeks. You know, he's obviously done really well, but the fixtures do turn quite a lot. They have a run from I think it's Sky Game Week 19, so in about two calendar weeks, but about 3 game weeks, where Rafinha runs into Chelsea away, Man City away, Arsenal and Liverpool. It's obviously not a nice run for him, but it'd be interesting to see what happens with Rafinha.
I think a few might move on to Emil Smith Rowe. That like dovetails with
it does.
Their fixtures change on the game week, where you can get the Arsenal or Everton player on the Monday night, and Arsenal's fixtures are really good after that as well.
Or the Brentford fixture, which is probably my play in terms of the Friday, more of a budget saving. I think I've planned that I think I'm going to Norgard for the 6.2. He didn't. I don't believe he got. I might be wrong. I don't think he got bonus on the weekend. He might have had tackles actually, but he's pretty good, And I'm not going to want to.
He got tier 2 tackles.
He did, yeah. So
he got booked, so 4 points.
I think the thing with going with Mboma or Tony or someone else, if you don't own them already, obviously, if you own them, then fine. But to bring in Mboma and Tony for 1 game and take them out again for 2 transfers is probably not worth it. It's a kind of maybe a high risk, high reward move potentially. But I think with Norgard at his price, I think if you can get 3, 4, 5 points off him every week, I think that's a pretty decent return, for someone there. Mendy for me is one as well, so he's 62% owned, but obviously he goes off to African nations sometimes on the back end of Christmas, and I've got a big decision to make around whether to move on to Ramsdale for that Arsenal versus Everton game day. We did a Spaces. Luke and Niall did a Twitter Spaces last week, which was absolutely brilliant, and mentioned it on there, and they were both massively against it because Mendy's hit the 4 or 5 fixtures he would have after Arsenal play Everton are really, really good, and they think I could regret it. We're going to have to take him out anyway, so that's a decision I've got to make as well. Diaz went down as well to 36.8. I think he's gone down, so that may have been a consequence again of maybe people seeing Diaz wasn't in the lineup and going for Kane. I personally
or a few dropping out without getting the points for the weekend by holding Diaz.
Yes, so of course. That's a good shout as well. Yeah, and Chilwell and Reece James finally starting to climb in the ownership stakes up to 19.9% each exactly, and noticing Damari Gray 21% went off yesterday with. I think he had a groin strain potentially.
It was like thigh or high thigh or something like that.
Which is a bit of a killer for those who are holding on to him for the Everton Arsenal game. But it's funny because we mentioned this exact scenario, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, around holding on for players for 4 or 6 weeks' time for captaincy. You never know what's going to happen. And Richarlison's also, I think he's banned for next week. He'll be back for the Arsenal game. But yeah, the Everton attack is just not looking great. Antonio suffered a drop as well, just in 27% now. I think he was in 40% plus last week as well. So again, it could be a symptom of teams moving in and out, or just people moving Antonio on, as I did. I moved Antonio to Kane in my other team on the Sunday as well. So just in moves there. You've noticed, Paul, about some midfielders starting to pick up a lot of bonus points again.
So those midfielders that are bonus magnets were really popular pre-Overhaul, and I think it was just a frantic start to the season, and there was mid-priced midfielders scoring high, not on a bonus point, but like goals, etc. So there's maybe less of a consideration for those types of players at Overhaul. And then looking at the last 4 games, like Gallagher's way out in front, 36 points overall, 7 of which came from bonus points. But you've got Declan Rice there in 3rd. We've got Rodri in 5th. We've got Højbjerg in 9th. Jorginho 11th, Kante in 13th. So I was thinking, like, Maxwell Cornet scored really well recently from an FPL perspective, and I was thinking, oh, he must be high in midfielders from the last 4 game weeks. And you look at it, and because he's not picked up any bonus at all, that you've got all of those players that I just mentioned there above him. And these are players that will just churn out consistent points all season, like between kind of 5, 6, 7 points on a week by week basis. So I think there's going to be a move back to these sorts of players as part of teams looking to consolidate what they think that their best team is moving forward over the coming weeks. And I definitely wouldn't advise against it, especially those players that are locked in. I think with Saul as well signing for Chelsea, a lot of people worried about who was going to be getting the game time in centre midfield. But I read an article, I think it was on the Guardian website last week, or Athletic maybe, about Saul not being Tuchel's chosen midfielder of choice. That wasn't his decision to go in and buy him, and therefore again Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic when he comes back, I imagine will keep getting playing at least kind of 3 out of 4 games.
Couple of points here as well. Interestingly, Smith Rowe, even though he scored 18 points in the last 4 games, he hasn't picked up a single bonus point. So again, this is why I'm kind of going against Smith Rowe. I think I know they have a good run of fixtures, but basically he has to get an attacking return against Everton to justify the captaincy, right? I think I appreciate he's a good hold moving forward, probably regardless. So that would be people's argument anyway, but I think there are better holds. If you look at Declan Rice, 26 points in the same period of the last 4 game weeks. There's a couple of players we haven't really spoken about much, and we have probably overlooked. I've definitely overlooked them. Is Bernardo Silva and Rodri. Rodri specifically for me because he just hammers the bonus every game, right? But do you think we've overlooked them, or do you think they're just a tad too expensive, considering all the value in defence?
Rodri, I think, has been overlooked. Maybe not so much Bernardo Silva. I still think he's returned really well over the last 4 game weeks, but he always reminds me of an assister of the assister.
Yeah.
Like he's always he links up the play a lot of the time, but he has been getting into forward positions. So 8.5 million could be. He's just one of those players when I see the team sheets and if he wasn't in it, I would almost feel like knee jerking him out constantly, and I don't want that. Whereas Rodri looks like he'll play 7 out of 8 games or 9 out of 10 games. So I'd much rather consider him pay the extra 0.2 for kind of the assurance of the bonus that comes in with that.
I'd be surprised with Silva because I own him in Dream Team, which is why I've kind of got a bit of a vested interest in him, and I only own him because of his price because he's so cheap. But I do think he's got either 3 or 4 goals in his last kind of 5 or 6 games. So he may be one to have a look at potentially. Obviously his price point 8.5 and Roddy's 8.7 is a little bit difficult, but there's surely an argument for going them over someone like Antonio right at the moment, who's just getting 2 points every week. I
was thinking it was more that I think I would rather someone like Højbjerg or Rodri or Jorginho over Silva, because Silva's played, as you say, he's played really well over the last 4 weeks, and he's not that many more points ahead of those players that are just consistently churn out and will continue to.
Fair enough. Good stuff. Okay, so let's have a look now then. So we're going to walk through the fixtures until New Year's Day, day by day, and just look at the captains, because this is something we touched on last week. But I think, Paul, you've had a bit more of a think, haven't you, about your kind of plan and strategy, and I have as well. I've got a couple of... I've noticed a couple of points where you don't have to commit yet still to a threemium of Salah, Kane and Ronaldo yet or not in my book. I still think there's a couple of points where you can make a decision later on the line based maybe just, for example, on how United are playing and how they're looking. And also, I do think for Ronaldo, right through December, specifically Ronaldo or Bruno or whoever we go for, there are very viable alternatives on the same days, captaincy-wise. And as you mentioned, I think Man City play first on a lot of those days. And at the moment, they're just as good as anyone, right? In terms of alternatives. But let's start then. So we've got it on screen now. So this coming Saturday and Sunday. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so you and I had spoke about this before coming on air, and kind of what the plan was for talking about today. And I was rethinking what my plan is over Christmas, and as a base, I thought, let's have a look at who I think's the best captaincy on every day, and then does that then change my mind on how I want to set up? Because last week I was dead set on doing the kind of 3 and then again another week of Chelsea defensive assets, Liverpool defensive assets, and
Kane and Ronaldo almost blanking. Right?
Yeah, and Man City defensive assets, and they're churning 10 points a game. And if I don't think that even the high-priced players are going to be the most captained players on those days, do I really need them in? And that's kind of the reason for doing this. So, this week's upcoming games, I think Salah and Cancelo is probably there's alternatives on the Sunday, but if you see in the Man City lineup and not seeing the Chelsea lineup, I think those two. And we saw the ownership stats there right at the start, right? They're both over 90%, Salah 99%. I imagine that those two will easily be the most captained players on both of those days. And I definitely haven't got any steer away from picking one of those two players.
I think if Cancelo is benched, so he will probably get a random sort of benching over this net. I think he's played every game so far this season. I think he only hasn't played 14 minutes of the whole season thus far. But if he's not, you've obviously got Spurs against Burnley potentially. Even though I think Spurs looked a bit better yesterday. I don't think Kane looked that great. But Chelsea, Man United, let's be honest, you can probably chuck it on Rudiger because United just don't press going forward, and they could easily get the passive bonus there, couldn't they? But yeah, there's lots of options there. But seeing the Man City lineup is obviously really important there.
I'm finally biting the bullet and getting a second Chelsea defender on Sunday as well.
Okay. So yeah, easy one there. And then obviously moving on to midweek, which is also part of Sky Gameweek 16. So the Tuesday, Norwich, Newcastle, Leeds and Palace. You would imagine Rafinha, maybe Gallagher on those ones who are obviously very, very highly owned. And on to the Wednesday, Paul.
Yes, on the Wednesday, again, I've got Salah down. So they're away to Everton. Everton look out of sorts. I think it's an easy decision for me. There's arguments again for one of the Chelsea wing backs. You'll see the team lineup. So any of the Chelsea defensive assets, or Cancelo again. But I think it's nice and easy for me. I think Salah will be my captain again.
I think it is worth mentioning for those who don't know on these midweek games because I think they're on Amazon, aren't they? All the lineups you get to see the lineups. They're staggered, but you get to see all the lineups before you have to make a decision on captaincy, don't you? Which I think is massively important because even though there's 2 different kickoff times, or sometimes even 3, you can make a decision on the lineups early. But you've got to be quick because you get to see the Everton, Liverpool, Villa, Man City. Yeah, you get a 15-minute window to see those and then make a decision. So make sure you've got a plan in your head. Something I'm not good at. Just quickly on Tuesday the 30th, so we kind of glossed over Newcastle and Norwich. Do you think that Newcastle obviously scored 3 on the weekend? They do have a couple of fixtures then. Do you think anyone trying to be different potentially go for Wilson for a couple of days or say Maximum maybe, or would you just kind of go with Rafinha or Gallagher?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to bring to get a fixture gain, unless you're taking out an injured player, you would have to. You can't do it with Newcastle players because they play on the Saturday, and then they play on the Tuesday. So,
it's not all about fixture gains, right? Every time, I do think it's important to say that.
I would, I agree. It's more that I think that if you're picking up an informed player or someone that's got a baseline like a Chelsea defensive asset or a Man City or Liverpool defensive asset with a higher baseline, I would agree with that argument of you don't need to get the fixture gains. It was more like you're saying, if you're trying to be a little bit different or a little bit clever by going against the masses, you're not only are you not getting a fixture gain, but you are going against the masses.
Fair enough. Okay. And then on Thursday, Spurs and Brentford, United and Arsenal. Assuming this is why we brought in Kane, right? Early.
Yeah. So I'll just captain Kane. Imagine those that have went freemium early maybe consider Ronaldo at home to Arsenal. I wouldn't advise against that if you owned them, but going on the ownership and I don't want to use a transfer at that stage, and I think I've just been Kane's nice and easy for me.
So it's important to notice at this stage that we haven't got a United player yet as the standout captain on the day, which I think is a theme as we'll go through. Okay, so Saturday the 4th. What are your thoughts on this one?
Saturday the 4th, I just try to hold them down. Oh yeah, Salah away to Wolves again.
Yeah, Salah away to Wolves. Chelsea do play West Ham away. You get to see the lineups, and Man City and Watford could potentially be a profitable one as well. But again, Salah, with his 99.9 wherever his ownership is going to be massively popular on that one, isn't he? And then on to Sunday the 5th. So Spurs play Norwich, get to see the lineups, and United play Palace. They're the two kind of main games there. Leeds do play Brentford as well for anyone tempted on a punt on Rafinha, but you would probably guess that Kane again is probably going to be the highest captained player on that day.
I think so. Yeah. I can't see me going off that. I think this is the opportunity, like one of the opportunities if you wanted to do like keep two premiums up front and then start doing the switch around, that you could move Salah onto Ronaldo with a view of then changing it back at some point. I don't think I'll be making that move though. I think it'll just be nice and easy. Kane captain for me.
I just can't see how, like personally, I just can't see how it's warranted. If Kane, Ronaldo, and Salah were all banging in goals or even looking very dangerous, then fair enough. But they're not, are they? And as you've mentioned, the Chelsea and Man City defenders are just banging it in every single week. I just think it's kind of, as it stands with current form and the way the fixtures fall each game day, it's kind of forcing it, rather than looking at just who's scoring the points. I did have a quick look earlier actually at the top point scorers of the last 4 game weeks, and there was only 3 forwards in the top 20, with the vast majority being goalkeepers and defenders, which just kind of shows where not only the value is at the moment, but where the points are going as well.
And especially like you could be using the extra money that you're saving by not having the 3 premiums to kind of shore up your defensive.
Van Dijk and Trent and stuff are being overlooked.
And then if you come down one level, you've got Kyle Walker, who's 10-pointer from him yesterday. You've got Reece James, Chilwell. Those are all $1 million saving on the 2 that you had mentioned. And you're getting players that are playing most weeks for the top teams with kind of point bases of 5 points to begin with.
Even players like Reece James is still he's less than 20% owned in top 1K, but he's 8.9 million. It's just, if we really think now that Azpilicueta has just lost his place and Reece James is first choice, which would seem to be the case at the moment, he's just a no-brainer, right? And even Lewis Dunk 8.2, there's some amazing value.
Yeah, if you're going 5, and exactly, if you're going to 2 premiums and you don't have Antonio, you could have a Dunk even as your 5th defender instead of Livramento, if you thought that he was going to score more points over that period.
And then we come on to the infamous Everton versus Arsenal, which seems we've been talking about it forever. Smith Rowe, he's highly owned. I'm tempted to either skip or go for Ramsdale. One of the reasons I'm tempted to go for Ramsdale is obviously I'm going to have to take Mendy out anyway, but it also helps me then in terms of releasing the cash for a future move moving forward, which I couldn't do unless I did Mendy to Ramsdale. Now, as I say, Luke and Niall were quite against this, which I can understand. Obviously, Mendy banged in another 10-pointer yesterday, and the fixtures that Chelsea have between that time. So the fixtures I'll be missing for Chelsea, I believe, I think they're home to Leeds, home to Everton, away to Wolves, away to Villa, and home to Brighton, which are obviously pretty good fixtures for Mendy, assuming he plays them all, because Tuchel has got this odd thing, haven't he, of playing Kepa every now and then. And he may decide to play Kepa just to keep his arm in potentially, at some point there. But Ramsdale for Arsenal has also got some really good fixtures. Obviously they've got Everton, but then they've got Southampton, West Ham, Leeds, Norwich, and Wolves before, obviously, the plan would be for Ramsdale to hold on to Overhaul, whereas obviously Mendy goes. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that plan, bearing in mind that it does release funds to allow me to upgrade Livramento to Dunk as well.
Yeah, I think if I had Mendy, I don't think I'd be moving him out. But and the problem is I've never owned them, so what I'm looking at is whether do I want to bring in Mendy knowing it's 2 goalkeeper transfers potentially.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So I'm actually thinking about Ederson maybe, because he's so lowly owned, and getting the Man City double up without having to go into Diaz.
Good, that's a good shout. I'm all for this premium keeper stuff. It's just because they're so cheap. Even though Mendy, he's one of the highest scoring players in the game, only 7.6 million. I'm assuming Ederson's probably something like 7.5, is he?
I think he's 8. I think he's 8.
Oh, he's 8. Apologies. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, they're just so cheap.
The reason that I've always kind of got it out my head from picking premium goalkeepers, I think, is back when Sky used to only award 5 points for the clean sheet, and I don't know if it's still a mentality. Yeah. I don't know if it's still a mentality that I've got from then, but
it's basically 9 though, right? It's 9 pointer, which is massive. Yeah. Smith Rowe will be popular, obviously. I don't really get it personally. It's not even like he's looking incredibly dangerous every game. He seems to almost every shot he takes, he scores. But each to their own there. And there's alternatives.
I just think it's that bad. I think I'd obviously highlighted the bonus midfielders coming back into the points recently, and I think prior to that it was almost like that the midfield area was a barren land in Sky, and the fact that he's 7.5 covers off a captaincy, plays for a top half team, I think is like probably where it's going.
Fair enough. Moving then on to Friday the 10th, Brentford and Watford. So a few people, including yourself, I think Paul, have got Mbomo already in place. Yeah. Some have already got Tony in place. I'm planning on going for Norgard. Like I say, just as a pure enabler. May get a couple of points, but it's more to enable the rest of my team as well there. Probably can leave that one. Saturday the 11th then. And this is one of the games. So City play Wolves. Liverpool are home to Villa at 3:00. And then United home to Norwich, which is obviously a potential fantastic fixture for Ronaldo or Bruno, but obviously he's up against potentially Cancelo and Salah.
Yeah, nice and easy for me. I think it'll just be Salah captain.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to, bring in a captain Ronaldo for that game. I mean, you're not even sure he's going to start. It's very likely he does start, obviously, but yeah. And then the next day, Sunday the 12th, this is probably a bit of a tougher one. Leicester, Newcastle, Burnley, West Ham, Brighton, Spurs. We get to see the lineups for all those 3 games, which is obviously really good. And then Palace versus Everton. What are your thoughts on this one for captaincy?
Yeah, I think I'll still be owning Kane if my rough plans go to stay the way they are. So I'll just captain Kane. I think he'll probably be the biggest. I'm pretty sure, confident he will be the highest owned captain that day. Some people might like if Antonio picks up form in some of the tougher fixtures, this might be a good hop on point for those. And all the chats just now about people getting rid of Antonio as opposed to bringing him in, but he could be a good alternative.
Gallagher home to Everton potentially.
Yeah. I just think I'd stick it nice and easy. Get to see the Spurs lineup, captain Kane. And
if anyone is on Vardy, still they're home to Newcastle as well, so they may be tempted there. On to Tuesday, so another midweek, and this again is another one where Ronaldo or whoever play away to Brentford, but Man City are home to Leeds, and you get to see the lineup. Interesting, Man City against Leeds. It may not be nailed on for passing City against Leeds. It's probably something to say, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that because there'll be a lot of attacking intent, the fullbacks again, Cancelo, be a good pick. I wouldn't be as keen on captaining someone like Rodri or anything like that in that game. With Cancelo's ownership, I think everyone will just captain Cancelo anyway. Although not those that own Ronaldo, I think that might be their chance to go for it, because not many teams pick up passing against Leeds, so Cancelo's baseline then starts a lot lower. As I say, he has got attacking intent there, but if you see the Brentford Man United lineup and you own Ronaldo, I suspect that he might be the most captained that day, and that would be one minor concerns I've got about my rough plan just now, is that I wouldn't own Ronaldo on that day, and he might be the most highest owned captain.
I think there's also an opportunity. Sorry, just heading back to Saturday the 11th.
Yep.
If Spurs are still awful, right? Because away to Brighton is not an easy game for Spurs. Let's be honest. I mean, if Kane scored, you'd probably be. I think you'd be surprised if he scored a brace. I think I'd be very surprised if Kane got a brace away to Brighton. There is the argument, I think, for moving Kane to Ronaldo on Saturday the 11th for that away to Norwich game. Skipping the Kane game on the Sunday and captaining someone like Gallagher or Antonio potentially, because then that also puts you in place then that Ronaldo away to Brentford game as well. I just think it is an option for a hop-on point if Spurs are still looking absolutely woeful, because Spurs' next game after that is away to Leicester, and they haven't got any really easy games over Christmas or New Year, Spurs. So for those looking at the hop around, that is a potential opportunity there, and it's something I'm maybe looking at, but it all depends how Spurs are looking, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If you did choose to do that, it's one of those moves that you don't need to worry about the budgeting plans around that, because it's value for value.
This is it, and the way I kind of think about that in terms of what you're getting in that small period of games. If Kane scores, even if Kane scores and gets shot bonus for argument's sake and gets a 9 or 10 pointer, so it's doubled to 20. Gallagher is probably going to get something a home to Everton. Let's just even say he gets an assist or some bonus, so he'll get 10 there. But then you're also getting 2 games off Ronaldo. Yep. You could captain him or not on top of those as well. And if he just scores a goal in each of those games against Norwich and Brentford, you're already in profit. So that's my thinking there. Obviously, Spurs do have Leicester on Thursday the 16th away, but then Liverpool home to Newcastle and Chelsea home to Everton. So you're probably not going to captain Kane against Leicester then anyway. So I do think there's an argument for that, but I think it does depend how Spurs are looking. And just quickly on Wednesday the 15th, we kind of skipped out. Not an easy one for captaincy. Burnley, Watford, Brighton, Wolves. So those with Dunk potentially may fancy Dunk. Palace, Southampton could go again for Gallagher, and Arsenal and West Ham. So those maybe holding Antonio may fancy that one, but you'd assume Gallagher probably be a popular one there. Do you think?
Yeah, Gallagher, and I think people might have made the move on to Dunk now if he's continued to stay fit, and people get frustrated with other players that they've got or injuries happen.
Awesome. And then on to Saturday the 18th. So again, United home to Brighton, which is a really good looking fixture. On paper, you get to see the starting lineups. West Ham home to Norwich. So this is an interesting one, because other than that, there's probably not that many highly owned players who would be a potential captaincy option. So there's no Liverpool, no Chelsea, no Spurs, no Man City on this day. I think they all play on the Sunday. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I've got Antonio's been down as the best captain on that day. If I don't own Ronaldo at that point, I think I'd likely go Gallagher.
Okay.
Against Watford, I think there's potentially points there for Conor Gallagher.
The way I'm thinking at the moment, just in terms of my plan, so I'm definitely not going 3 up front, but I'm very, very tempted to do that Kane to Ronaldo move I mentioned back on the 11th, or you can do it, I think on the 14th, or even on this 18th, if you really wanted to. Again, Spurs have got Liverpool on Sunday the 19th, so you're not going to captain there, especially when City away to Newcastle, Chelsea away to Wolves, and Liverpool, obviously, him against Salah could run riot as well. So
the beauty of Antonio's price is that if you don't have him or you've taken him out at this point, because there's obviously massive merit in moving him to someone like Reece James, who's very similar price.
Yeah,
is that you could bring in Antonio on Wednesday the 15th away to Arsenal, even if you weren't captain.
Yeah.
and then you've got them in with the fixture gains. And I take on board your point. It's not all about the fixture gains, but you are gaining a fixture there in light of the good run of games for West Ham coming up as well.
I think the only thing I would say is that this will be West Ham's, I think it's to be their 6th game in around 18 days. They do have a break of a week then between this one and Boxing Day, but there may be a risk that potentially gets a rest or a knock or whatever else. But it just is worth probably mentioning that.
And that's the beauty of having a rough plan of when you go in,
exactly.
like when you go into it. It's not like it's a single West Ham captain. It's not like it's a single captaincy day that you may be planning 2 or 3 weeks in advance for it. There's other options on the day as well. There's Arsenal away to Leeds, so if you held Smith Rowe, perhaps opportunity there. And Palace playing, Gallagher's ownership's that high that he'll be a default option for a lot of people.
I agree, and obviously, even on West Ham, right? Because a lot of people have said Bowen in particular has been in fantastic form, takes a lot of shots, so he could be willing to bring it either as a double up, in the short term, or maybe if you haven't got Antonio, you could bring in Bowen. So there's a lot of options there, and I think the whole theme of what I'm kind of getting here, is that it's is just making sure that you leave a lot of flexibility within your team to be able to move reasonably quickly and have those price points in place. You don't have to make 2 transfers to get in 1 player is obviously a really important theme. On to Boxing Day. Liverpool home to Leeds, probably an easy one, this one. If Salah plays at home to Leeds, he's going to be the standout captain there. 12:30, you get to see the lineups. City play Leicester, Spurs play Palace, Chelsea away to Villa. But on all those games, you don't get to see the lineups. It'll be Salah, and then on Monday 27th, obviously Newcastle Man United, and this is the other option then in terms of jumping on Ronaldo, isn't it? Because you could go potentially, if we get news at this point, as we mentioned last week around AFCON, and when Salah leaves. So if Salah is leaving after this Boxing Day game, you haven't got Ronaldo. Salah to Ronaldo is obviously a really easy move there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's my only kind of solid plan around where I would feel uncomfortable not having a captain that I already own all the way down to this point here. Obviously, things will change, injuries will happen, the landscape will change multiple times during this period of time. But that's my kind of one lock, that if I hadn't made any transfers or made minimal transfers at that point, that the Salah to Ronaldo move would be made there.
Just to say, I did check Bruno's price earlier, and this is such a fall from grace for Bruno. He's actually exactly the same price as Ronaldo, which is obviously brilliant. In terms of you can go to either or. Do you still think Ronaldo is the go-to choice man at the moment? Because he's not. I noticed he's not in the top 20 in terms of ownership. So I'm not sure of the exact ownership in the top 1K, but it's under 14%, which is interesting. Do you think that he is the go-to?
I still think he is, and we'll see whoever's in charge of those games, how Man United are playing, and because this is a month away or 5 weeks away, that more time, more information, of course, allows us to make that decision as well.
Fantastic. Just on to Tuesday the 28th, gets the Arsenal Wolves. Spurs play Southampton in the 3:00. Leicester Liverpool. So Salah's still there. You would guess that Salah, even though you don't get to see the lineup, which could be quite a scary one, because obviously all the teams will have played a lot of football around this point. I could even be tempted, if I do go for Ramsdale, to captain Ramsdale in that one, just for surety of start over everything else. Spurs away to Saints, so you guess if you do have Kane, that he would be a really good option there. If I do go ahead with my plan potentially to take Kane out for Ronaldo, this could be the point where I bring Kane back in for Salah, if that makes sense, and maybe captain him then, but not an easy one there, because obviously we don't know who's going to start on these games. Bear in mind they all play a couple of days earlier, don't they? And Wednesday the 29th, Chelsea home to Brighton should be an easy one there, and also Brentford Man City, so you get to see the full lineups there, so that should be a nice easy one there. Tuesday the 30th, Everton Newcastle, United Burnley. Probably Ronaldo.
Yep, your Man United asset that you brought in or already hold.
And then finally, Saturday the 1st, then Arsenal play Man City early kickoff. Man City always beat Arsenal pretty comfortably. Spurs away to Watford as well. Palace and West Ham, but yeah, it'll either be a Man City player. If you go back onto Kane there, that Salah to Kane move, for example, if you hold it all the way through, he'd be a good one. And then Sunday we get 4 2:00 kickoffs. Just on a look, actually, then maybe not. You get Chelsea and Liverpool at 4:30, which is going to be a hell of a game. But you've got options earlier on potentially of, Leeds players to hold on to Rafinha, Brighton against Everton. If you've got Dunk, maybe, or Chelsea, Liverpool, just maybe stick it on Salah because he's just if he's still on that much form, he can score against anyone, can't he?
Yeah. So having went through all of this, Fergie, the reason for doing this isn't I need to know what my captain is on all these days necessarily, but looking through the captaincies, there is going to be a conclusion to this story. So I've got Salah down 8 times, Cancelo down 3 times, Kane down 4 times, Rafinha twice, and Mbeumo once. Emil Smith-Rowe or an alternative or nobody on that single day. Gallagher or Antonio would be once if I brought him in that other day. Dunk once, and then Ronaldo would be 3 times captaincy. And the Ronaldo captaincy would only be from the 27th of December onwards. So like I'd said before, I'd come to the conclusion that as long as I have him or Man United asset in at that date, I'm fine. So the fact I can cover off the majority of those with the high-owned captaincies on all those days means that I need very little or few transfers to make along those lines. And I've been thinking about kind of how far away my team is from where my optimal team would be kind of moving forward, or some sort of variation in that. And that's why I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to spend a few transfers over the next couple of weeks, kind of shore up my team and get it really in the get some of the players in that I've been putting off getting in for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring in Reece James or Chilwell next Sunday, and I've got views to do goalkeeper moves, which I'm still kind of got a couple of options on as well. Because of course Sa's done okay for me recently, but Wolves' fixtures do change in a couple of game weeks time as well. So I'm going to make a goalkeeper move at some point as well. So yeah, that was a whole reason for me wanting to go through it like that. Seeing that I didn't need to make too many transfers on the captaincy, like to bring in the players that I want to captain, and therefore thinking, can I use transfers now to my gain to, one, get my team in better shape, and two, kind of get some fixture gains in there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and this leads on very, very nicely to our next section, which is brought to us by Dave at Simple Goal. He put a tweet out saying, "Fellow Sky FF players, Overhaul is now confirmed." So it is confirmed. It's that weekend into the 23rd or 23rd or 24th, whenever that is. That is when the overhaul will be. So you need to plan up to that point, because obviously in the overhaul, for those who are new, you get to completely change all your team for free. But he asked the question, how many transfers are you expecting to have left at overhaul? And some really interesting results here. That top of the shop was with 40% of the vote was 22 to 24 transfers. 21 or less was 29.1. 25 to 27 was 17.1, and 28 or more was 13.7, which is really high. And I suppose there was a raft of comments underneath, which is really, really interesting to see around. Are we holding transfers back needlessly? When are we going to use them, etc., etc.? And to your comment, you said then around your conclusion around your plan for December is actually helping you make decisions around how you feel your transfers would be better spent now potentially, and keep you in the hunt for winning the whole game, I'm assuming, rather than just falling behind just for the sake of making these transfers.
And it's even my plans aren't overly aggressive. I don't think I want to use 2 or 3 transfers to shore up my team now, with a view of maybe making 1 or 2 over kind of Christmas period. There'll probably be an injury in there, so maybe up to 3 transfers over that kind of Christmas period. But when overhaul comes, there's only 15 games after the overhaul. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't multiple ways to skin a cat, and obviously depends on kind of where your rank is and how many transfers you should be planning on having left over at that point. But I found it quite fascinating. 1 in 7 managers that took the poll are considering having 28 transfers or more for 15 game weeks. As I say, if your plan is just to sit tight until then, and you've been okay with injuries and just want to play the last 15 game weeks super aggressively, when people might be stagnating or trying to consolidate, then I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad tactic, but it's not one that I see too often.
I think a lot of it, well, all of it depends, right, on where you are with your rank as well, because it's this question doesn't take into account any context of rank or your ambitions as well, right? Because if you think, if someone's playing in a works mini league and their ambition is to win their mini league, but they'll win it every year by finishing, roughly in the top 1,000 or 2,000, then their ambition and style of play may be completely different from someone like yourself, for example, and hopefully myself, who actually got, dreams of winning the whole thing, right? And and kind of what you're up against there in terms of experience and quality of player, and the amount of players you're actually up against, the amount of good players you're actually playing against as well. So I think that's really important. And it's also down to your team as well, and how much of a mess if it's in. If you need to perform surgery to your teams, and you've really got 6 or 7 players who you had good plans for, they looked good, potentially, but now your team is just in a mess, and you're not competing, you're losing ground every week, then that, for example, I'd say is a really just do it, just bite the bullet and sort your team out and halt the slide when you put yourself into a position to climb again. But yeah, it's interesting, Paul, because I've never really seen you play like this before, but it's something I think the whole holding the transfers back at the start of the season is obviously massively important, and everyone needs to do that at the start, right? Unless your team's in a complete mess. But I do think it's been a brilliant exercise in potentially looking at, because I'm looking at my team now, right? So I think I've got 30 transfers left. My team's in pretty good shape, I think. But in terms of all the transfers I mentioned there, in terms of maybe getting to Dunk, even the Ramsdale move, if I want to do that, getting Norgard and potentially making a couple of luxury transfers to get in someone like potentially James, potentially Chilwell, or wherever else, and also doing that Kane to Ronaldo, and then Salah to Kane switch. So all this, all through to New Year with all those transfers, I'm having a look, and I think that works out to be about 7 transfers, which will take me down to 23. But in all that time, my team is probably, as it stands anyway, as optimal as it can be. You can probably chuck in 2 or 3 transfers there as well for, injuries and all this sort of stuff, or emergency captains, for example. But generally speaking, yeah, it seems at the moment that that only 80% of the game will have over 20 transfers left. But I take the point from Dave and yourself and others who are saying it. Now that we kind of know reasonably how things are going to pan out until the overhaul, do we need to hold them back as much? Because there'll be nothing worse, right, than holding them all back and then just not being able to make enough ground up. Because the thing at overhaul as well is a lot of teams will be incredibly similar. There will be a core of 8 or 9 players, right? So
all it takes is a single game day in the first game week, and everyone will have that player. So if Leeds were playing, then like Rafinha will be like 90%,
or maybe Bamford by that point. But yeah. But yeah, and such is the constant churn of content now from all over the community that people are influenced, right? And I don't mean everyone, but the majority of people are influenced, and you can see that in the ownership. That in terms of these players, you mentioned earlier that you've got, what was it, 8 of the top 10. I've got 10 of the top 10, just as an example, and my 11th is Højbjerg, who is lower down. But whether you like it or not, I think with more content, more tips, more everything, becomes more of a template, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anything else to add on that, Paul? We haven't had an update
No.
from Sky yet of the transfers remaining in the last week, but they're there on screen for anyone who wants to see them. Just read them out for podcast listeners. Top 5,000, and this is currently, this is as of a week ago. This will exclude all the Kane moves and wherever else this week. Top 5,025, top 1,027, top 126, and top 10, 25 left. Okay, good chat there. We've got a fair few questions. Hopefully we've answered the vast majority of them actually, so I'll go through the ones that we haven't answered. Benny Blanco was stuck on a mountain on the weekend. He couldn't transfer in Kane due to having no reception. Would you still make that move this week or ride it out without him now? What's think about that, Paul?
I think I'd still transfer him in, and I almost think of yourself as ahead of the curve by being behind the curve.
Absolutely, yeah, good plan.
Duffy outscored Kane again this week, so that upgrade of Duffy to Kane 4 weeks ago has seen me. I think it's like net 5 down or something like that.
Brilliant. MC1986 asked me. He asks me, are you looking at moving Christensen on now? Still carrying him myself in one team and torn between finding a move to someone like Dunk or James, or hold him over Christmas, knowing that majority of players will be a victim of rotation. So I think I made a decision on this. And it's not going to help you at all, Steve, because I took him out of one team and not the other. So, but he got back-to-back clean sheets pre this game. No, he didn't. Sorry, no, he started both. Sorry, he had a 10-pointer and a 4-pointer. I had to make a really tough decision on Saturday whether to take him out or Antonio out, knowing that Christensen is probably a very good longer-term hold, but Antonio, has got these really nice fixtures, and I know if I took Antonio out, I would very likely want him back. However, I made the decision in my second team to probably go Ronaldo now over Antonio. I think potentially, I'm not 100% set yet. I know it doesn't help at all. I probably, it's a really tough one because their fixtures are really good. You know he's probably going to play 4 out of 6, and their fixtures over Christmas are really, really good. Actually, he's going to play plenty of minutes, obviously, unless he gets injured. I would personally say he's the kind of player that if you took him out, he'd probably punish you in terms of whoever you brought him out for. Like, you know how it works, right? You take out Christensen for, say, Dunk, and then Dunk will pull his hamstring, and then you'll move him on to someone else, and Christensen in the meantime is just racking up 9 points, blank 10 points, and it doesn't help you to say you feel like crap. I'd probably hold him personally. I'm holding him in one team. I'm moving him on another. If you had Christensen, Paul, what would you be tempted to do there? Would this be one of those moves that you think you would just bite the bullet and get rid or not?
I would try. Yeah, I think I would get rid at this point.
Depending if he maybe starts the next game, and if he doesn't move on to James or someone like that, maybe, or Chilwell.
I don't know that would make up my mind anymore if he started a game or not, knowing how often he's rotated now.
But you're not going to take him out for James or Chilwell if he's starting, are you?
No, well, if you're talking about this weekend's game coming, you don't see the starting lineup anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So I think I would just get rid if I was going to do it.
You're going to do it, okay. Neil, Sky FF, mentions the 8-player shootout season, and yeah, up till Overhaul, I think you're absolutely right, Neil. They're just, they're the best players in their positions, and Cancelo and Gallagher in particular just offer incredible value. They're way too cheap, aren't they? Really, Salah is the most expensive player in the game, but he's way outperforming that price tag in terms of consistency and definitely ownership. MD179 asks about if James and Chilwell now considered essential picks before it's too late, but he does have Van Dijk, Rudiger, Cancelo, and Webster. He's got Antonio, so he's like similar to me in terms of thinking, should I just rip the plaster off and take Antonio out for someone like Reece James, for example, who's basically the same price, or just kind of hold on? But then you are just using transfers, aren't you? And and who's to say that James may not start a couple of games over the next few? Would you think the same with Antonio? Paul, are of interest, the same as Christensen? Just get rid.
I probably would, and I can see a lot of people doing that this week as well. This is one of those instances where you're right in terms of the fixture game might be don't look for the fixture gain. Just make the move if that's the move that you want to make long term anyway.
Yeah, I think it helps in terms of that they're roughly the same price. I'm talking specifically now about Antonio and James. They're 8.8, 8.9. So it's not like you're having to reconfigure your team structurally in terms of prices. They're roughly the same. So you could potentially even when Antonio's fixtures change, you could just move them back if you wanted to, or move someone else depending on who's injured or whatever else. Yeah, and then we had the questions, off Dave and a few others, Hornet as well, around overhaul transfer count, what should we be aiming for, etc., etc. Like I said, I think just to add into that as well, I do think it depends where you are. It's like myself and Paul are currently on a bit of a good run, I know Paul has. I have to a lesser extent, but I definitely got designs to let this rank and potentially go in to try to win the thing, right? I don't see the point in just letting my rank slide to maybe 500, then 1,000, and then worse, just to hold back transfers. It's all finding that balance in it between having that rock solid team with opportunities to gain rank, but always making sure that you've got enough in the bank. Because I've done it in previous years. I think 3 seasons ago, I was in 17th place in April, so I was in a really good spot, but I just ran out of transfers and I ended up finishing up 98th because I just ran out. And if I hadn't have run out, I would have had a chance. I'm not saying I would have won it by any stretch, but I would have had a good chance of a top 20 or 30 finish. But because I didn't quite time my transfers right, I ended up just dying a death at the end, while other more prudent managers just overtook me. So that's probably a really good example of where holding a few transfers back towards the end is massively important, because a lot of experienced managers will do exactly that, and then and they'll just overtake you at the death. Question off Niall Murphy from the Scout Pod: with Cancelo, Chilwell, James, and Trent delivering holes week in, week out, is the freemium dead? So I think we've kind of answered that in terms of I don't think it's potentially dead, but for me, kind of look at the difference now between my two teams. I've got the option to get it in one, but not the other now. I basically got kind of Diaz and Højbjerg, which means I probably can't get to Ronaldo in that team. Whereas in the other one, I've got an option to move from Diaz to Ronaldo. So I don't think it's dead. I think it really depends on what happens in these next 2 or 3 games. Obviously both Spurs and Man United are both going to be in a transition now, and at this period of the season, we tend to see more goals over Christmas as well. I think the key for me is just remaining flexible and being able to move to them in one move, or maybe 2 maximum if you can. What are your thoughts on that, Paul? Just that after we've gone through your plan.
Yeah, I'm pretty set on not going 3 big hitters up front now, having assessed everything and locking it in with 2. So if I did need to get the 3rd one in, and it cost me a couple of transfers to move it, you've come up with a viable plan. If I didn't go Ronaldo early, then my plan still sits well with what I'm trying to do. So, I just think there's now, it's now becoming apparent that there's too much value in the mid to higher priced defenders and mid-priced midfielders from the bonus perspective.
Agree, and the fact they're just out of form, right? I mean, I don't think either of them have scored a goal now for weeks. So surely the only reason you're going to want them in is to captain them because of their price. And if they're not showing any signs really of scoring, even if they score 1 goal, it's still not, it's still the same as like a clean sheet and passing bonus. What these guys are hitting every single week is just no benefit at the moment, is there? We've answered some questions. Thank you, Tom and Ben. We've answered those questions around the Arsenal game and whether to swap Antonio out. Wandercat Venus says Twitter is of the opinion that anyone 100 points behind the leader can stop playing and get the golf clubs out instead. Would you agree with the Twitter community? Absolutely not. We're not even a third of the way through the season. I really don't understand that. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I don't think it's. I don't know that it's a serious question. I think I don't know if it's certain people are under the illusion that it's not like. what I would say is that it's that condensed this season that I've never seen a season like this in Sky, with a point stretch not being utilised to the max at the very top, having used a lot of transfers. Like a lot of the guys at the top that have seen have got open teams or are very open on Twitter and stuff, are open with their transfer accounts as well. And albeit they've used a few more transfers than maybe the average is, is that what's a transfer value worth? Is it worth 10 points, 15 points? It's probably worth different points, different season. I think that's an interesting debate that might become more apparent when we see where people finish up at the end of the season.
I just think it's so easy to like, I don't know, this whole game, football goes in cycles, right? Football goes in cycles, fantasy football goes in cycles, therefore, and just because something is so obvious and apparent at a present moment in time doesn't mean it's going to be obvious and apparent in a couple of weeks' time, definitely not a couple of months' time, and definitely not in 6 months' time when we're looking, kind of March, April, and going into May. Things will change massively. So anyone, I've seen some comments, right? Because the leaderboard is packed with good players, this, that, you haven't got a chance. I mean, to me, I'm sorry, that's absolute rubbish, right? There's like, anyone can win. There's who knows what's going to happen in a game of football, right? If you look at Kane this weekend, 66% of the top 1K brought in a misfiring Kane who, as expected, was absolute dog shit. I mean, if people are making moves like that, then if you're, if you can, if you don't play that ownership game and you actually go for players who you think are going to score the most points, for example, who's to say now that not jumping on a Man City block, because their fixtures are fantastic, for weeks and weeks and weeks. You could jump on a Man City back four, get Rodri and Bernardo, just for example, and hoover up 60, 70 points every single game. And if Chelsea concede, you're 50 points up after one game. There's so much variation in this game. Just don't give up and don't listen, because just enjoy the game and play the game. Where if you think of a pie chart, for those who watch the Green Arrow on my FPL show with Adam, I did this whole kind of pie chart thing on Tuesday, and I like to visualize everything in a pie chart. And if you look, we're 12/38 through the season now. Just try and visualize that on a pie chart. We're less than 1/3 of the way through the season, and all those 2/3 left is all football yet to be played. Like, it's crazy, right? There's loads and loads of time. I think my advice on this in terms of fantasy is just play a sensible game and don't get sucked into this crap around you need loads of differentials, you need to be different, you need to do this, you need to do that. Just play a sensible game and you will have a good finish, and hopefully put yourself into a position where you can challenge towards the end, where luck will play a big factor either way of getting your ambition of either potentially winning the game or winning your mini leagues. But just by going mad now, you just put yourself into a position where by New Year you'll probably be nowhere near where you want to be and your season's dead. So just play sensibly. Anyway, rant over. FF Dempsey, with lots of managerial changes, we need to reevaluate which teams to target in terms of good fixture runs. I think that's a really good point. If you look at Villa, just for example, obviously 1-2-0, they kept their first clean sheet in goodness knows how long on the weekend and played well and beat a good Brighton team. Norwich, how did Norwich do? They won. Did they win away?
2-1. They beat Southampton 2-1.
Yeah, which, and Southampton have been on incredible form, as all Livramento owners know, right? That Southampton have been in really good form.
Play Billy Gilmore, you win games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, he could be one, right? Where who turned out to be a decent enabler at Overhaul potentially. Spurs under Conte probably haven't changed that much yet, other than they're gonna scrape results. But I'm sure that'll change. United as well, and Eddie Howe and Newcastle probably started off exactly to expect. They score loads of goals, but they concede loads of goals, well, which I don't, which is why I think that. I know Wilson wasn't involved in 3 goals this weekend, and got booked, but he could be one as well. So yeah, I do Dempsey, and I think that.
Sure.
Sorry,
I'm sure someone asked a question on Twitter about Wilson, and Dan tagged you in the response.
Yeah, he probably did. Right. But I just think, as an example, when United play Norwich in 3 weeks' time, we may see a very different Norwich. If Norwich have kept, for example, back-to-back clean sheets, they're scoring goals and they're looking very, very resilient, that could change our plans in terms of potentially bringing in Ronaldo or even needing Ronaldo at that point. So that's an example of what I would say. But I think we've got to watch them carefully and watch how they do over these next few. Reem asks about Palace defence. So you brought in Gehi on the weekend for his goal and shots bonus, Paul. But yeah, I'm assuming you still think the Palace are decent going forward.
It was just the perfect time for me to jump on. I'd get rid of Aspilicueta anyway. I wanted to save a little bit of budget. I don't think I would go for anyone other than Gehi.
Yeah.
I had a look at his attacking stats prior to bringing him in. I just wanted to get the full picture, and yeah, I was under no illusions. I thought it was like a Connor Cody type. He'll get one goal in every 100 games or something like that. But yeah, I think he's got this game that he might do well in at home to Villa in terms of passing. Again, I can reassess, and I've already made 9 points up from the transfer. So if I did want to move him out again, then I would consider doing that further down the line. But I'm happy to hold him just now. I've got no massive concerns.
Cool. I think we've answered the rest of the questions actually. Norman asked one about transfers left going to Overhaul. Matt mentioned about Bernardo Silva, and Gordon asked about Smith Rowe, and a few moves from Luke NDN. He mentioned about maybe bringing in Webster. I'm not sure. Did Webster play on the weekend at all?
Yeah,
he did. Did he? Okay, so if he's back,
he got tackle. He got passing and tackle.
Yeah. So he could be a really, really good option moving forward. It's
interesting what they'll do. I still think that Duffy will get dropped. I thought the lack of pace got exposed again in defence. Certainly towards the end of the game, which I know tired legs and stuff, but I still suspect that they might go to the back three of Veltman, Dunk, and Webster when everyone long term. But I guess we'll see over the next couple of games.
That for me is really interesting because I was thinking of going to Dunk, but that if Webster is a viable alternative to Dunk, which he is, if he's playing every game, that potentially means I could just leave in Mendy and go to Webster instead of going on to Dunk. So this is this whole more information stuff and planning weeks ahead. Yeah, that's really good. Thank you everyone for all your fantastic questions as usual. I'm just going to show everyone my team now each week, just so I can we talk to all this stuff, but don't really share my teams really. So I'm going to do that. So this week, so this is my A team. So this is the team that is ranked 265th at the moment. My other team is exactly the same, aside from I've still got Christensen and I haven't got Antonio. And my other team is ranked about 400th, I think, or something like that. So if we're listening on the podcast, I've got many in goals. I've got Rudiger, Diaz, Cancelo, and Livramento. I then got Rafinha, Gallagher, and Højbjerg, Salah, Antonio, and Kane. So I brought in Kane and Højbjerg yesterday. It's the first time I've done 2 transfers in a day this season. In this team, I took out Christensen and Tielemans. I was disappointed with Tielemans, but I am quite glad to have Højbjerg. I know I said Bo, before we went live that I noticed Højbjerg yesterday was kind of dropping into the back 4 a lot yesterday for the passes and stuff. I didn't expect much against Leeds anyway, because Leeds are the kind of side that don't give up too much bonus. So I got a real bonus obviously with the goal, but I do like him going forward. I think he's good. My very, very rough plan at the moment, and it is a rough plan, is to move Rafinha to. So if I do the Arsenal game, I could move Mendy to Ramsdale, which I'm tempted by. I'm not 100% yet, but I am tempted by that, and I could offset that actually by potentially moving Antonio to Reece James or Chilwell. Which I am considering, just in terms of the spirit of what you just said around just, rip the plaster off maybe and just do what needs to be done. I could do that.
I'm doing Aubameyang to either James or Chilwell.
Okay. So after Rafinha's good run ends in about 3 weeks' time, I think they play Brentford and then they have a really tough run. I'm thinking of going Rafinha to Norgard, so I'll just have hopefully 3 bonus magnets in midfield then of Norgard, Gallagher and Højbjerg. Which will then allow me the funds to move Livramento up to either Webster or Dunk. And that's probably as far as I've got. I am tempted to go Kane to Ronaldo, as I mentioned, around, I can't remember, the 11th or 14th or something along those lines, and then maybe hop around. But I do think I could potentially have enough cash, maybe, to move Diaz also up to Ronaldo if I was absolutely desperate, which is good. I'd have that if I did Mendy to Ramsdale. So I've still got a lot to think about in terms of that. But that is my very, very rough plan for this team. And on my other one, it's very similar to say, but I've kept Christensen in that team. But again, I am tempted to maybe just move Christensen on, as Paul said to Chilwell or Reece James, and just get it done, and just keep mopping up all these bonus points, especially because their ownership is rising. Right, they're up to 20% now. Antonio's is down, so I saw 27% in top 1K. And Christensen is out of the top 20 overall. So we don't get to see the lineup for Chelsea this week, do we? So, and you'd imagine against United they'd probably get passing, because United don't tend to push the back four, do they? So moving on from that then, let's take a look at the Hub Leagues. In 10th place, Ashley Tongue, 9th, Billy Fraser, 8th, Adam Billany, 7th, Ryan West, 6th, Luke Notley, 5th, Rob Watson-Lang, Hub contributor Rob, 4th, Gareth Solomon, 3rd, Liam Stevens, 2nd, Al-C Bishop, and still top, as he has been for weeks and weeks now, is John Kerr. So very well played to you, 10, and particularly John, who is currently still top there. And the Four Nations League, the Scottish flag is still flying. Although if you just look, Paul, to the bottom left there is a Welsh dragon tail just starting to slightly creep into picture there. Just to know that I am.
Why did it creep in more this week if I outscored you at the weekend?
Because I didn't think to do it last week. I didn't think to do it last week, but I'm gonna have that Welsh flag just kind of depending on how close I am or not. At the moment, it's just the dragon's arse is in view, but it's just to let you know that I am up your arse, so to speak, here. So just go in from the bottom. Paul's second team is on 998. Liam's two teams, 1,007, 1,064 points, and Dan's second team is in between on 1,050. Ian Parrin then is in 5th and 6th with 1,078 and 1,072. Dan's Sky Bite Size team, 1,086. If you don't follow Sky Bite Size, make sure you do on YouTube. My two teams are 12 points apart. The only difference there is because I captained Rafinha one day and didn't, and captained another person on the other day, which is why that's like different. Though those two teams now, as I say, have taken a slightly different approach. They're on 1,136 and 1,124. Paul is still top by 22 points, I think. Well done, Paul. Well done for picking Gahey, who got you a goal and shot bonus. Very well played, sir. But Paul is currently 119th, so very well done for him. And that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed. It was really good, actually, to really kind of nail down a few plans on paper and come up with a strategy. I think personally it's been quite hard up until now, because you never know the fallout of the international break, do you? Whereas now we've got a fair idea, especially judging by the performances of Liverpool, City, and Chelsea on the weekend. They're just going to keep on going, and of Spurs and United, who are dire, who are still dire. But yeah, thank you so much for anyone who is watching this or listening. Your continued support is much appreciated as usual, and thank you so much, Paul, for your fantastic preparation, insight, and thought. Where can people find you, Paul?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY.
Fantastic. And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. Make sure you drop both of us a follow on Twitter if you don't already. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky, and TFF YouTube channel. It's also available on all major podcast platforms. If you do play Telegraph Fantasy Football, we uploaded a video to this channel last week. It's a bloody long one, 2 hours 40, but it should see you through all over Christmas and well into the new year. It's well worth a watch or listen if you haven't done that yet. If you like what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. As mentioned, also, please follow Sky Bite Size, Dan Cox's channel. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, Ian Parrin's Sky transfer planner, famed transfer planner, and much, much more. We have also got, also if you don't follow FF Stuff 3 and use his site, for which we use a lot of our graphics for, make sure you follow FF Stuff. We'll be back next week, looking to the remainder of Game Week 16 and on to Game Week 17. So next week we'll be right in the middle of the game week, won't we? It's going to be really interesting because there are games, I think, every day, or most days rather.
Saturday, Sunday, we'll record on Monday, and then there's games Tuesday.
That's
Wednesday.
right. And then the following week, though, there is it's that Everton-Arsenal game, so we'll be recording before that. Always can be interesting. Yeah. So we'll be looking ahead to the remainder of Game Week 16 and on to Game Week 17. Stay safe and good night all.